All right, let's just see where this goes today. Um, kind of continuing on a little bit on the polymath. Okay, is if you remember me talking about it, I one of the deals is finding these, not finding, but being able to see connections between different things that might normally seem unrelated or whatnot. And you this has been in my mind for a long time, like I don't even know how many years now. Is this this idea that there's no truth, that or if there is truth, it is a very, very, very small subset of the population, like really small. Maybe fit them in one house or something. I don't know. Why do I feel that way? Why do I feel that nobody is telling the truth? Now, just so you know, this isn't like some conspiracy theory of mine, and I'm not doing very well, and there's alien stuff down it. That is not the case. But it's kind of funny. I'm going to say this because it's kind of funny. I don't think anyone wants to be honest with themselves or others that they're liars, that they don't tell the truth. Oh, those words sting. We shouldn't use those words. But no, it's true. Let's talk about it a little bit. Something simple. Something simple. How are you feeling? Oh, I'm good. How many of you have answered, "Oh, I'm good," or "Oh, good," whatever. I'm saying, and you're not, and you're not. And, but why would you do that? Well, what's the reasoning? So, well, the reasoning maybe is maybe that you don't feel that's the time and place to tell whatever is bothering you. So maybe it's that. Maybe you got your kids with you. You got a kid hanging on your hip, and you don't want to discuss it in front of them. So maybe like it's audience. Maybe you feel you don't have enough time to convey how it is you're really feeling. Maybe you don't think the person who is asking really cares. Like that's not that they may have asked it, but that's not a person you feel vulnerable to share how you're really feeling. Maybe you said good because you really you're not really good, but you don't really know how you're feeling. Like you haven't sat down to figure it out. So there's a lot of reasons that one would answer good when not good. How many times have we told someone a number? Okay, I can't think of it. My child hit 3 home runs or whatever. But maybe the story sounds better with 4. Maybe And why would we do that? Well, we're proud of our child. We want to. It can't be harmful. I mean, it's just it's bragging them up, right? I mean, there's no 3, 4 who cares, who cares, but it it happens all the time. And if a person really does it a lot, we're like, oh, they tend to exaggerate a lot, you know. We might do it, when telling somebody the cost of something. We might, to maybe make us look a little more doing okay, if you know what I mean. Yeah, we paid this amount for it. And you might have took the liberty of rounding up, let's say. So we might do it to kind of solidify or try to maintain or get into a different social economic class than, I don't want to say we belong, that you're in. But maybe that be a case. Maybe you were stepping on the scale, and and you're like, oh, I only lost 1 pound this week. Would there be a chance you maybe told someone else that you lost 2? Or maybe 1.5 pounds? Or a little over 1 pound, right? That's I think it happens a lot. What about this one? What about an event that takes place? Some type of event in your life, and you retell about it. Kind of like what I've been doing, and I want you to know that mine have been as accurate as I can do. I don't feel that they need much more shine to them, if you know what I mean. But let's say you're telling a story, and I'll use a perfect example of one that I've already put out here. Is this is on my video number 2 of the Miracle Buffet. And I spend some time in there talking about me being on the ventilator. I did not spend near enough time describing how crazy it is to have something else breathe for you while you're there. Like that's. But I lied to you. I found out. Well, kind of. kind of. I kind of lied. But I didn't mean to. But does that matter? Does that matter if the fact that I, in this case, couldn't remember, and what I told you wasn't entirely true? Does that change it from truth versus lie? I think it's still a lie. So here's what happened. I was talking to my buddy, the one that was in the the rollover in the truck, and he was up there quite a bit when I was still on the ventilator, and I'm sure I couldn't imagine what it would feel like to pretty much like almost kill someone, or if they're sitting in this state and you don't know if they're going to come out and can add 1 + 1 when they get done, if they can feed themselves. I mean I can, anyway. So I was telling him about that I had recorded that, and he's like, man, he's like, they could not put enough of that drug in your IV. And I was only getting 2 drugs, and one was that I've kind of nicknamed my God, the God juice or whatever. And I've always said that because they could turn you on and turn you off, kind of playing like God. And then the other one was some pretty awesome painkillers. Not that I was tripping off them, but I don't remember pain during that time, which means it wasn't memorable enough to, to remember. But he was like, yeah, they couldn't give you any more, and you kept waking up. But they didn't want you awake, He's like, but they said they couldn't give you any more because you it would kill you, So yeah, that's part of. And then I told him about pulling out my IV or whatever, I think the port or whatever they call it, and I know that I thought that was, in my mind, that was the truth, and that did happen because I did check, but I thought it was, I completely forgotten that, and maybe I never even knew. But I would say I didn't give the whole information. Sorry, to me that's still a lie. Which is another type of lying, is just a half truth, like where you admit something. Maybe the party you went to, when you tell your parents, well, there was some drinking and smoking, but you don't mention the drugs. That's lying. Maybe you probably feel I'm beating this to death a little bit, but just maybe one or so more. You just get in to work a little late or whatever it might be, and you don't maybe share the truth about that. I don't know. We do it. We do it lots of times. I feel very confident in saying that I think we do it more than we tell the truth, because telling the truth is hard. It's hard. There really is, just like for what I listed there's so many benefits to lying. And I think, one of the, if we kind of boil down, one of them is survival. We lie to survive. And so the interesting thing is, and what I'm trying to maybe go to a little bit here, is our communication, our conveying of information between us and others is not black and white. It's not. It's not on or off. It's because of, and I didn't even list them all, but because of all the different reasons that we lie, we create, shades of gray. It's not just white, and it's not just black, but we have a whole palette of gray. And I've been thinking about that, and I thought, that's kind of like an adjective a little bit. As far as information's conveyed, if we just communicated, 1 or 0, basically yes or no. Now, granted, there can be lying inside that answer, but the lies are fruitful. They're. I'm not saying we should do it. This is not a moral. This is not a moral video. But lying gives us adjectives like it to our experience. It enhances. It's like an enhancer. And that's how we operate. I mean, if you think about it, we as humans and in our mind, we don't compute, we don't run on zeros and ones, are on and off. But no, we have a whole color spectrum at our disposal. In our language, although it's shrinking a lot, our language shows the need for these enhancers, to have more different levels, different stages, different values, if you will. So this gets me to thinking, because I've been absolutely diving into learning about canbus, and it's for this EV conversion that I'm paused right now, that I'm working on. And this, every single vehicle, every single ship and boat, and I'm not talking about old stuff, I'm talking about new stuff, a motorcycle and crane and dump truck and plane, and what did I miss? Like, even the big end loaders and stuff at these huge quarries, they all have canbus. It's the way the world goes. And you're probably like, I don't even know what he's talking about, and you're starting to zone out, maybe, I don't know. But so the most everything in our life, especially if it moves about a little bit, it has multiple, they call them nodes, but we'll just call them computers. Okay, we'll call them computers. And if we stay with cars, there's a computer that keeps track or manages the engine. Okay, so and they call that an ECM, an engine control monitor management. I don't know. ECM is, and then there's like a VCU, which is a vehicle control unit. There's body control units, and those do more things like taillights, headlights, windshield wipers, because it's part of the body of the car. And there's tons of them. There's a braking one, Sometimes there's a transmission one, and I think anybody could see that all these items, the engine doesn't sit alone on an island. It's not working by itself, and so it's going to need to communicate with the other computers or nodes, as you will. And this is done on canbus, is what they call it. And really, it's nothing more than two wires that are twisted together to help with interference. But there is no other shielding. I guess there probably could be, but most of the time there's not. They're just twisted together, so for interference reasons, and then they go to the next unit, and I'm not trying to completely bore you with all the details, but that's how that's how the communication's done, is over these two twisted pairs of wires, and a tremendous amount of data communicated. Like you have no. I was blown away. Like there is a tremendous amount of data that is carried over this canbus line. But what is interesting is if we kind of back up. Well, now let's see, where do I want to go? So if the engine was to say something to the VCU, it's going to send what they call is a frame. Okay, that block of information is a frame, and there's quite a few things that are done, little morsels that everything does stuff, and then there's kind of a they call it arboration, I believe, but it's kind of like a little bit of duke 'em out or a fist fight. Who gets to talk next? Has anyone been in that situation? Is it my turn? And they just keep going. So yeah, they had that same problem with canbus. Who gets talking? And they have a beautiful way of solving who gets to. And it's kind of a powwow. They both, well, it could be more than two. It could be 3, 4, 5, all talking, start at the exact same time, and they all keep going until the winner is decided. And then the winner gets to finish the rest of the conversation, and the other people just shut up and listen at that point. And yeah, that goes on a lot. That's part of it. But the way that the communication is sent down is kind of interesting, and it's a little different than kind of like your basic computers, and maybe I'm sharing this and it's not even necessary for my point, but those two lines, there's a can high and a can low. Okay, so they're two different color wires, and one is one and one is the other. And the data, all computer data right now, and this is what I'm getting to, all computer data, yes, and the way computers process and store information is zeros and ones. It's binary. It's on and off. And I will never forget this. I don't even know if he still remembers. Okay, buddy of mine growing up, and he was super smart, like ridiculously smart. Like I think it actually looking back kind of crippled him a little bit because he was just so damn smart. And he liked Star Trek too. There wasn't that many things to watch on TV, but I believe Star Trek was on there. And this is just in the beginning of the internets. I used to always call it the evil. That's what I called it back then. I'm like, the evil, And I think he got this picture off the internet. So you couldn't do much with the internet. It to me, when I looked over their shoulders and they're doing this, and there's only like 4 other people that had the internet or whatever. I mean, you have no idea. It was little. It was little dumb. But I think that's where he got this picture, I believe. And this picture was, and I don't know the characters, but there was this gal, a Star Trek girl, and her breasts were out. They were hanging out and showing it. And I'll tell you, it was a pretty good picture, really. And I remember him. I think he printed it off because you couldn't really share any other way back then. Computers didn't really. I don't think there was it was so ridiculously primitive, and I think he printed it off. And I'm looking at it and go, teenager or whatever. And I remember him turning to me, and he says, It's just zeros and ones. It's just zeros and ones. And it's true. Like when we break that down and the way that, wherever, who knows where that image came from back then, I don't know. But when it was, coming, it was just, I don't know the language or the framework in which the information was conveyed. But in the very end, it is either a one or a zero. And it was a lot of them, I'm sure of it. And then on this end, there's the protocol that's set up to take and reconstruct this chain of zeros and ones and turn it into that image, assign colors to the pixels and each thing. But fundamentally, it's zeros and ones. And it might even been zero. I don't know how they used to work, but it might have been zeros and ones when it was going over to the printer. Might have still been zeros and ones there. I think that's kind of funny, but that is the world of computing. It's all binary. I mean, I feel like I can go further and say it's all truth. And you may go, I don't know if I go. Well, is it? I mean, it doesn't really mess up. There's stuff in there. There's, just like on this canbus system, there's checks and balances. They're all watching. And if it isn't received like it was sent, it, either goes into quarantine or gets deleted, it's done. So there's even a system. There's even a system of making sure that the zeros and ones are organized correctly and that one is not missing or one's not flipped, the other direction. I guess I want you to think, and I know there's lots of reasons in your mind you may be thinking, no, they're not. But I'm posing, and I believe, computers are more honest than humans. If for no other reason, for accuracy. And but that takes me to another part. Like we didn't evolve, and it didn't take long. It didn't take long. I mean, I'm not trying to shove any Christianity down anybody's throat or anything, but there was some lying being done. Like I don't know how long it was. First week, I don't know. It wasn't very long. In the garden. I think there's probably some little half-truths, maybe. There was definitely some, by the serpent or snake or Satan or whatever you want to, there was definitely some, some misleading going on there. But it goes back that far. And so why would it not have evolved over time? Of course it would. It's going to be like any other, tool in our pouch. We're going to, adapt and see what works, what doesn't work. And we've had a little while now to do that, Civilizations. We've had like broken up civilizations that can learn it in their own way, how to use it. I think that we had to have gained from it. And I'm not saying I'm in agreements. I'm what a crazy world. If anyway, yeah. Hey, what's going on? Nothing. Everything's a lie. Where is that? Oh, geez. I mean, it's better to think Sorry for making you think about it. But another thing on this same topic. Let's say you tell a lie, okay? And this is, come on, everyone's told a lie. So let's say this is a lie that you tell on purpose. So in our mind is the original event, but we choose at this time period to share this event, but we share it differently. You know, we modify it somehow when we share it. Well, you know what happens automatically is we take one event that's stored in our brain, and now we have a carbon copy of it, but it's not a carbon copy at all. Remember, we modified it. I also don't think the second copy, or the copy, versus the original, I don't think it's as good. I think it could be as good. I'm not talking like it's meat. I'm talking about like the how hard it's stuck in your, how much you're going to remember it. And here's why. A lot of our stuff that we do, I think most stuff we remember. Now let me back up. I think everything is stuck in our head. Okay, I really do. And I think it gets easier over time, for us to organize that information. But here's what I do know: the memories, usually, like the ones I've been sharing and stuff like that, they are pretty strong in there. Okay. Whereas some stuff is not. Like I can't tell you hardly what I did yesterday, but I can remember with clarity, kid you not, age 2. So why is that? That's because memories stick better when they're either, I'll just use the word traumatic, or, if they're real bad. Who can't remember something bad that happened to them? Or when something good happens to them. It's almost like when that memory is written down, it's not written in pencil anymore. It's written in maybe a Sharpie. It's really laid out there. So, but we take that event and we go into the future, and we're sharing the event, whatever, somebody's asking about something, whatever, it doesn't really matter. And we recall that event, but we're choosing. We're absolutely in our mind know we're choosing to modify it, to lie. Well, I feel one of the problems that we have is now, when you tell John this or whatever, you now have to keep that carbon copy of your modified carbon copy of that event. You've got to keep that in your brain in case John asks again. If it comes up, you don't want to look like a liar, because no one wants to look like a liar. But here's the problem, where they, like, liars get caught or whatever. The problem is when you told John the story about whatever event in your past that was happy or sad, that's really, really drawn in Sharpie marker, and the new one is like barely written lightly. It's because you didn't have the same event. You didn't have the same super good or super bad to turn around and take your light, tracing and just draw it out in Sharpie. So it's kind of like this really crappy waste of space in your brain because of it's not a very good copy, but you got to keep it. And the other thing that happens is eventually it, inside your head, John's version, starts fighting with the original version. And what's it fighting for? It's fighting for truth. You know? What one really happened? But computers don't have this issue. You ask for a copy, or if you duplicate a file and save it in another location, now you've got the same exact file in both locations. Now you may not remember where they are, but you might have to use that search. But it's there, and it's just as good. It's just as accurate. But I don't feel we can. I don't think we. I think we need to outgrow. I think we need to outgrow zeros and ones. I think we need. I think we need a little bit more. We need an adjective. And we're running into this problem. It's been recognized. I think it was in the Soviet Union or something, Russia or somewhere. There's a really kind of crazy story, if I remember right, about basically a university, and they were supposed to get a computer, but whatever this kind of governing body was didn't like somebody or something, and so they didn't get it. They didn't get the computer. So then they made their own, and why? This is back when computers were first. This is old school. And to shorten the story up, they end up making a computer that wasn't. Its logic wasn't on just 0 and 1. And I cannot say the word. It's like tritionary or whatever, but 3. It was based off of 3. And so now, whatever way you want to work those numbers, you can either do like -1, 0, and 1. Okay, that's 3. You could do 1, 2, 3. There's a couple different ways that we could do this, but it totally opened up like what we can do, because we're going to have to go here, because we're going to need to convey that much more information as we continue to progress, as we're progressing. We've just about getting to the ends of canbus, and so they've got a canbus FD or something. They've got a couple tricks up their sleeve, but the amount of communication that is being required is they're at the max. Well, let's just take a second to talk about the max, because I think this kind of applies. So when they send a frame of data, okay, it's kind of crazy, because a very, 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 very small portion of the entire frame, which is a ton of ones and zeros, well, technically it's hexadecimal, but in the end it's we won't go there, okay, but oh gosh, my brain just fried on me here. Let's see. So, but very, very little, out of this frame of information, very little of it is like the data that's actually being sent. Like, oh, how hot is the engine, you know? But instead, it's a tremendous amount of other stuff. You know, there's some different pauses in there that are required. There's some syncing up. There's an identifier. Hey, I'm the ECU. You know, there's some conversations there. I mean, there's one. There's a section in the frame that's just going to tell how much information is going to be sent. Remember, that's so that the guys down the road, they can go, yep, I got it. And then there's this data section, and I can't remember. It's only like 8 or 16 bytes, but whatever. We're not gonna. But and then then there's an acknowledgement one, because otherwise he's just going to keep screaming out the temperature if nobody tells him, shut up, I got it. So there's an acknowledgement one, section, and you add it all up, and but the it's this to this. So why am I telling you this? Well, we could make the data section a little longer. So there's more more information that can be sent. But the problem we're running into is the rate at which these frames. I'd have to draw out the zeros and the ones, to build it, to figure out how fast. But it's like, I don't know, like I want to say like 1,000 messages a second or something. I mean, it's ridiculously fast. And they only try to load the canbus about 50% because you still got to have the fist fight. You got to have some time in for arboration and whatnot. But so what are our choices? What are our choices? Our choices are make each frame longer, convey more message within the frame. One would be to try to do more frames. If you had to send, like there's a new sensor that doesn't even exist now, and we got to send that on, we could try doing extra frames. And the other is we could speed up the frames. Like instead of 1,000 or whatever number I said, I'm lying to you right now, per second, we could make that more. Well, all of them have a problem because, if we have a train track and we're putting trains on there, if the trains are longer, then we can fit less of them on the same track, right? I think everyone can understand that. So, and why does that matter? Because we have to get to the end. We have to see the end of the train to be able to put the next train on there, so, or whatever, if that's making sense. So longer the trains, the longer the wait and the shorter the gaps. And so you end up with some quality issues, of the system. Adding more frames, kind of the same deal. It's like more cars on the freeway, And then the last one is speeding up. And, here's the deal. Anybody who does anything with speed knows speed costs money. You got a car and you want to go faster, open up your pocketbook. Okay, that's why a Lamborghini costs more than whatever they're selling now these days, because it goes faster. It costs money. You want faster internet? There you go. Yeah. Now I'm speaking everybody's language. It costs more money. Speed almost always costs money, and it's almost always has an element of increased unreliability. Okay, so you're going to have more. Okay, how many people are driving a Lambo? Driving it to 250,000 miles. I'm not saying it's not possible, but man, these things are ready to run. They're probably not making it that. And so you do give up some reliability, and you increase cost. And that's no different than all these nodes that are in your car and all these other places I was talking about in your, everything. Another thing that you have to deal with, besides reliability, that almost always happens, is an increase in heat. Remember, more work is being done. And if more work is going to be done, then there's going to be more heat. There's no way of getting around it. And now you need to manage that. You've got to deal with it. It's not, you can't ignore it. So let's look at that. Why are manufacturers not, looking at these options? Well, the crystals and whatnot at the in these nodes in your car that they're setting the frequency, or letting us have this frequency, they get more expensive the faster you go. Heat, they'd have to deal with the heat. Probably could be worked around, probably. But let's talk about the real reason. It's cost, right? I mean, they're not going to go. Nobody's going to go, the method of more pain for a certain amount of gain versus, I don't know, kicking the can down the road or looking at something else. And they don't want to either. And so the system sticks. But I propose this now. Now, just so you know, that computer, they've tried, on paper it's supposed to work with the trinary or what, however it's trinary versus, binary. In theory is supposed to, be better. But in practical application, it's never really worked. And that really comes down to the way our electronics work, from the beginning. As we, like my buddy said about that Star Trek gal, it's zeros and ones. Well, we could change that. Let's not make it zeros and ones. Let's say the light switch is on or off. Okay, right? That's two positions, on or off. And believe it or not, that's how you're seeing me right now, is on and offs. A tremendous amount of them, like more than we can count. And these devices that are in our electronics, that they've been working for however many years now, they're getting more and more efficient at scaling them down in size, which reduces their energy use, but at the same time packing more of them in. Okay, why? It's faster, more computing power, better video, better, But I think we need the other way. I think we need the other way. I have said this, not for a super long time, but basically since all this AI stuff went stupid, it's not stupid, but like the growth. And there's nobody watching this that doesn't know the fact that they consume a tremendous amount of electricity. And you should also know what you do. They consume a tremendous amount of water. What's the water for? It's cooling. Remember I told you all the heat? It's not free to go fast. And these aren't free either. But if you look this up and you look up, you take something that we in our mind as humans would process, I don't know what their examples are. And you have AI process the exact same thing. And we look at the amount of energy used by AI to compute whatever it was, and we look at what the amount of energy that was used that we consumed, like a carrot or a piece of celery or something, humans win every time. Humans in energy efficiency. And I'm not even saying, I don't know which one's faster, and then, if they are faster, do we, out of fairness, give a handicap? And like most people, we do some pretty cool computing day in and day out with our heads and bodies and taking care of ourselves, and there's not smoke coming out of our head. We're not, we're not like liquid cooled, backpack with a radiator on us. But AI and computers and laptops and even your phone, if you feel it, they get warm. And I think that one of our edge or advantages, okay, just throwing it out there, one of our advantages is our light. Once again, I'm not getting into like a moral on this, but in fact, I know it's listed as 1 to 10, but I wonder if we don't need the gray area. Not we, AI, and if it doesn't eventually go to that. And I've predicted that we will, we're seeing a tremendous amount of resources being used to build these things. But I predict we'll get to a point long before we're done building out, okay, that we will be solving some of these problems, and the efficiency will improve, and the energy use, the water use will remain more so the same, yet the computing power, if you will, will continue to increase. I mean, it did everywhere else in our life. But I don't think there's ever been a need like there is now. A couple laptops and computers in our desktops, whatever. I don't think there's ever been as much of a need. And why do I think that they'll eventually, mimic or whatever, copy humans? Well, look at all the robots. I know there's some that are shorter, they're like 4 foot, and there's not very many 4-foot people, but I mean, they're not shaped like other creatures or animals, at least not if they're successful. I mean, that Spot, the one that's a dog, I mean, seriously, he's always going to be a sidekick. I don't think he'll go away, but I think he'll be standing next to a Tesla bot or whatever, doing something. Because the human form factor, there's a reason why we're here. There's a reason why we're succeeding. There's all this, and it's because it's design. And they're mimicking it in the robots. And I think some may say, well, they're just making human form factor robots because the world is set up for human form. I don't know. I would say our best robots will be very, very, very close. They don't need to have 2 eyes necessarily, but I bet the head will be at the top, and it'll be kind of a shoulder type area and some arms, and it's going to look like a human. I don't know. A little crazy, I guess, but I guess give it a think. Have a good day.